This is Ali Vogel from Flexi Design, and today I am so excited to have the opportunity and privilege to interview my good friend Pablo Stanley, who is going to share with us a bit about his journey into designing and creating with AI. So, Pablo, thank you so much for being on Flexible by Design, our podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Today, we are going to cover some topics around designing with AI and the transformation that we've seen, especially in the last few years. But for our audience that might not know you, maybe they live under a rock in the design world, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself?
So for those who don't know me, which I'm pretty sure is going to be the majority, I'm Pablo Stanley. I'm a designer and just a maker of things. Have a project called Lummi, an app with a team that we built. It's a tool for creating and finding dope images using AI.
So Lummi is a tool that allows you to create really beautiful, almost editorial-like photos using AI. We at Flexi actually use Lummi a lot in our projects. It allows us to do a lot for the clients that we work with, and it's been huge in our AI toolkit. So Pablo, how did you get the idea for Lummi? How did that come to be?
It all started actually not so much as a I have this idea or anything. It was more of a need. We're building our own vibe designing tool. This was almost 2 years ago. And the most important design tool is going to be a text input or like a conversation. That is going to be the design tool, but like the everything tool of the future. So why don't we build a design tool that creates designs based on an input? And it's pretty simple. Like before all these vibe coding tools, we were trying something. The thing is that back then, the output was horrible. It was so bad. Now vibe designing is just like something that like it gives you pretty decent results, pretty cool stuff. And you can give it more guidance and you can give it more context and you can choose APIs and stuff. When we were starting, the output, it was so bad, and we're trying to do websites. Like, let's focus on just like doing landing pages and just output that kind of stuff. The thing is that all of that needed images. So for our landing page, the hero image, then different sections of our website, and we're pretty committed to be like, no, but let's do everything AI because I didn't want to use like an API of a stock photo image out there. I wanted everything to be AI output. But even then, also, AI images were horrible, expensive, slow to make. It was not a long time ago when we're all like laughing at images with with more than 5 fingers on each hand, right? So when we were testing this, the images were so bad. And if the images were bad, then the whole thing looked bad. And we were like, oh, we need these images to look amazing and beautiful because if the images look amazing, then the rest also looks cool, even if the design is not as great. So I said, let's build our own library of images so we can use it on our tool. Lummi really started as an internal tool just to satisfy our needs. We kind of use it as an API for our own website creation. So we create the content and all the sections and all the copy. And then instead of trying to do the images in real time with AI, which used to take minutes and the results were horrible and it was expensive as hell, we said like, hey, let's just create a bank of images. We tag them and actually using AI also to tag them to do all the indexing and everything and use webbings, whatever they're called, like just to search them and really quickly just offer images that we know we curate. They're all made with AI, but we make them. And back then it was like out of 20 images that we make, we'll find 1 or 2 images that were good. And those will be added to our bank of images. We will just like tag them and everything, make them searchable, indexable. And then that way, we just grab those images and present them. We really love doing Lummi, like all the images and the curation. And we just kept adding cool stuff to it. And it was just our own stock library that we just made public. And they were like, you know what? Since a lot of people are using this, let's just go ahead. And we also internally love working on this product. We enjoy working on this. So we're like, let's work on Lummi. Let's make that our main product. And it's just like a focus. We are a small team, so We can only divide our time so much. So yeah, we started working on that, and then suddenly it became our thing, and then it got acquired. It's so weird because it was just like as a side project that we just made public, an internal tool we're not caring too much about, but then suddenly we grew, or love for it grew over time. I suppose that people started liking it too.
And are the use cases for Lumi what you expected? So, from what you've seen, either from us, other creative studios, product companies, marketing agencies, marketing teams, etc., was this something that you had anticipated, or has there been anything that surprised you?
Well, I suppose it's no it is kind of surprising because at the same time, you would think that with all the image generation tools that exist, with all the generative diffusion models that exist, and how easy it is to create images, you would think that people would not use the stock images anymore, right? Like, why would you use a stock when you can just create anything? So at the same time, that's also why we are not like, oh, Lumi is just like a stock image repository thing. It's just a library, and this thing is going to go away because image models are going to get so good that you're not going to need stock images. But actually, we found that I don't know if it's just inertia and just people liking the way doing things the way that they have always done it, using the stock images. It may images that are already pre-selected, but I think it goes deeper to that because with diffusion models, generative AI image models, you could do anything, but sometimes that ability can just like block you mentally. You don't know what to do, right? And usually with the stock images, like you see them, they're already curated. We curated them. We carefully put the images that we think people will like to use. So a lot of people, I think, like that kind of experience where they just browse and they let serendipity drive what image is going to be the one that they use. And sometimes they find something, but it's not exactly what it is. And then we allow them to be like, hey, well, you like these two images. And then from there, create something new. So then the creation process is not from just a blank input or a blank canvas. It comes from these things that I liked, and then I will create something new. Because it's the whole thing about like I like it when I see it. It's sometimes it's hard to describe what you want, and it's hard to just like ask a generative AI model to do something. So I think that people are liking that flow where either just like, hey, we already selected images that we know you're gonna love, and we try to keep them pretty current. So I think the surprising part is like inertia, I guess. Also, people, even when they have these very powerful tools, is still going and doing old school workflows. Also, the power of still keeping the human in the loop, meaning in Lumi, the curation part, in
Mm.
humans being the ones who I think I'm lucky that my team has pretty good taste, and they're pretty picky about the images that we put on the homepage and the images that we feature and stuff. And also we are very picky of the creators we invite. They're amazing creators who just we know that whatever they're going to create is going to be amazing. While all the images are made by robots, it's actually people who are the ones who wrote the prompts and selected what is out there. So in hindsight, is not surprising. But in the beginning, I would have not thought that was the thing. That's what would be a differentiator, where like having good taste drive thing, and that people still prefer that kind of human in the loop. By the way, I still keep saying human in the loop, but actually now we're building agents that can do a lot of this stuff too, that can do review of images and can say, oh, this image doesn't look good, and actually flag it before it even reaches a human. So we're building agents that actually do a little bit of the work, and it's actually pretty cool to see them actually give thumbs up and thumbs down to images. Like, oh, I don't like it. Let's regenerate it again. Because sometimes images, it can detect little details on the images, and we say like, these are red flags. If it adds a logo, if it adds text, if it adds specific things, thumbs down, remove that image. All of that stuff, which a human can do, like now we're giving those kind of tasks to our robot too. So a lot of the things that are not so much on the taste, but really just tactical things, the robots can do too. So
Yeah, and I think this is literally the definition of human computer interaction when this discipline was invented through the evolution of the way that we have always been interacting with technology. And today we really see it firsthand, right? Because one of the biggest arguments that I've heard from the design community about why design isn't a dead discipline is because ultimately there is such a thing as having taste and being tastemakers. Maybe that will change. Maybe robots will take over that as well, the smarter that they get. But at least for now, this idea of having the curation done by a person and also people not necessarily being meant to create from just an input box. So it is interesting to hear you say that one of the big things that we're seeing is when individuals are using this, they do want to see the curation. They don't necessarily want to create things from scratch. They want inspiration. They want something that's out of the box. And I remember I went into a meeting with a VP marketing at a company, and her and I had been speaking about doing some work together. And I said, by the way, what are you guys using in terms of stock images? Because this is like a unicorn company. And she told me Shutterstock was one of the things that they had on their budget. And I actually told her, have you heard of Lummi? You know, I'm your best salesperson. And she said no. And I explained what it was and what it did. And there definitely was, and probably still is, like a huge appetite for this. So I can tell you from the creative studio. We are so used to using AI in our workflows that to have the ability to just generate images is something that we do every day. But to be able to have a highly curated tool that is already giving this to us, where we have trust and confidence that we can look for an editorial style photo in Mexico of a woman next to a cacti, et cetera. And like, we know we can go to Lummi and find that. That's actually really powerful and saves the team a lot of brain power in actually creating that. So it's really cool to see how you've developed it. I want to take us backwards. I want to like take our DeLorean and like go back to 2019 when you and I first met. And I was working at booking.com and was talking about how we were using machine learning for personalization. And now, fast forward 6 years later, we are using AI. Machine learning is an application of AI, but we are using AI in such a different way we were doing back then. And I remember you telling me that when you had started Blush, which was the parent company of Lummi, and you had started running your illustrations through these machine learning models, you were getting some pretty wonky stuff. I think I still have like an image of that somewhere in my photos. And it's crazy to think how far we've come. At what point did AI enter your vocabulary, Pablo?
I remember the first time I started playing around with these things was I built like a chat bot for, Google Home. The little, you just say, hey, Google, it's going to turn on. And then you ask something. So I built an app for that. They would tell jokes. And then you would say, hey, give me a pun about cats. And then it would just like give you a pun about cats. But back then, it was all very hard coded. I was working with this and because it would be able to recognize a speech and it would be able to recognize different patterns of different words like synonyms. And then from that, know what answer to give you. But even those answers, I mean, we still see it on Siri and stuff. It's still working on that technology. But it was still machine learning because you would still try to train it on little details on different words. And this one was for a very specific use case. I just wanted an app that would just give you puns. It's so dumb. They would just like give you jokes, like dad jokes pretty much. And I realized, holy crap, this is a lot. I'll have to do it only about animals because back then, if you, as a solo developer, you have to choose a very specific thing. Like this was 2016 or something when I started playing around with those things. So that was my first time that I started playing around with what you now will call maybe AI and machine learning and just like with this chat interfaces, but it was more like the voice interface.
I don't know if we're going to be able to see this,
Oh
but
yeah, there you go. Yeah.
this was 2020, and these were some of the first machine learning generated images that
Yeah.
you fed through a model, and this is what it gave you. And so, yeah, like to your point, I mean, these LLMs, like we're not out yet. And I'm sure people were thinking about this, right? Because we always go through these technological fads. And even back in my booking days, booking.com, like a more traditional large company was like, hey, let's invest in AI. They thought the future of AI was personalization, but turns out the future of AI is actually efficiency, right? That's like what we're using it for. Speed and expedite processes, write better content to create images better, faster, more accessible. And that's where it's been. And it's not a fad. I can say that with confidence. So it's cool because you were thinking about this. I have the date. This is back in 20, like, did it. And this was, one of the first things. And to your point, it was pretty laughable at the time. Like, I think we could have never imagined that we would get to where we are today, but there were early signs. So fast forward 5 years from when you first started experimenting with it. Now Lummi has been acquired by Udemy. So what are some of the things that you think we're going to start to see in the next 5 months to the next 5 years?
Yeah, more and more what I see is these things just improve in themselves, having more autonomy and the use of AI more as an operating system, as a non-deterministic operating system that adapts to the user, that adapts to the needs, adapts to the context. Right now, working with large language models and creating products will require you to have kind of a set of guidelines that you give to the LLM or the diffusion model. You want them to have a very specific result at the end, right? It was like, hey, I'm going to use LLMs kind of in the middle to do a specific set of tasks at the end. So input, have an LM that is connected to an actual back end or to an actual front end, and then have an output and have that output formatted in a way that your front end is going to understand so you can display to the user. I think that's going to change. I think it's actually just going to be input, and then in the middle, it's just this orb, this limb, this robot that can do anything and can actually write code for itself and can write the app that is needed in the moment. So it looks like you need directions for cool restaurants around you. And I know that you have these types of food allergies and I can see your location. So I'm going to build an app that is specifically right now for you. By the way, it's in the morning, so I'm going to just like automatically search for brunch stuff because I know that you love brunch and mimosa. So I'm going to connect to Google's API to just display a map or maybe with your natives phone thing. And then I'm going to use just the basics of like primitives of UI to just display an app for you that you need right now. That app is ephemeral. It's not going to be something that you're going to be using again. You just need it right there because I'm hungry and it's right in the morning. And then that app, like later, if you say like, hey, I'm hungry again, the app that it builds is going to be different because it's going to be non-deterministic. It's going to be the UI is going to be different. The results obviously are going to be different. So that's where I see a little bit of the future going, where it's like, but while it's different, it's still contextual. It's to adapt the output to those things. Now we're still working on having this thing that can do anything, connect to real things, to connect to your home, to connect to your accounts, to connect to your email. We're building those connections. I feel like those connections are going to start becoming more accessible in needs where suddenly an LLM, you will give it access to all of your stuff, and then it can do like, hey, do you have any meetings today? And then it will just give you a list of those things because it knows your email. By the way, you don't have this in your calendar, but you should add this to your calendar because I'm seeing your email that you haven't spoken with this person and this person wanted to get you in the calendar. So why don't I just create and propose and put that something on your calendar and I send an email to that person? Having those capabilities, that autonomy, but also that ability to understand you and your context is what are going to start seeing more in the short term, actually. It's actually important that we're aware of those things and we actually talk about those things and we don't treat them just as sci-fi crap anymore. Like actually, no, this is something that we should discuss and actually designers too. So I think 5 years from now, a lot of people are predicting that it is between 2 to 5 years when we reach superintelligence and AGI. And this means suddenly it's not just this thing that helps you and this that is there to help you and it's always obedient and it's always giving you a thumbs up. And maybe it still pretends that it's doing that, but it's actually scheming to do something else.
What are some of the practical tools that you recommend for designers, maybe traditionally non-technical designers or slightly more technical designers that should start getting their hands dirty in? Vibe coding tools, things we should be playing with. So you're at the forefront of a lot of this, and you're always tinkering and experimenting. So share with us, what are you experimenting with today and what should we know?
So actually, I can tell you like two projects I'm working on that I'm using AI a lot. One is for Udemy. Well, actually, three projects. Lummi and Lummi just create prototypes of different features. I vibe code the prototypes and just like, hey, like, is it possible? Like, for example, I was telling you in the beginning, like, hey, Lummi now has 3D objects and like we can actually turn images into 3D, like a flat 2D image. We can turn it into 3D and then we can export that as an OBJ or as a PNG that you can just like place in. Like I actually built that first. I just vibe coded it, and just to show it to the team, Vince convinced us that it's possible. So I would say like beyond ChatGPT, I would say Claude. I have found that Claude is by far the best at coding. Now, ChatGPT is by far the best at checking that code out of a loop. I've been using Claude Code on the CLI on the terminal. Holy crap, it's just by far the best. Which for designers out there is not the most intuitive. It's not. I mean, you have to open the terminal and you have to put a like a code to actually open Claude, and you're interacting with the terminal, which is a horrible experience. But once you start using it, you feel so cool. You have this superpower that as a designer suddenly you that we designers usually see developers using the terminal. Why would you even use that? Why hasn't someone just built a UI around it? But when you're using Claude with the terminal, you feel like you understand. Okay, it's cool that you're using this thing that doesn't have buttons or that the only interface is just text. And since Claude, at the end of the day, with the LLMs, what you're doing is just chatting. It's just like writing sense. So I've been using Claude Code for my main code. Like whenever something it reaches a threshold where I need to add more complexity, I use Claude. Now, but before that, the first thing that I use for all the front end, the layout, the buttons, the UI, all of that stuff, I use V0 from Vercel. I've done tests with different ones, all the vibe coding tools like Lovable, Bolt. They're all so verbose. They all give you some just slop. Like I know that a lot of people love those tools. Even the Figma one, it's just like even when you are like attaching a Figma design and you're saying like, hey, like you use their vibe coding tool that Figma make, it doesn't follow it as good as V0. V0 does in Figma files, then Figma. So because that's something that you can do in V0 too. You can just like copy a Figma file, so you can do the design, the layout, what you want, the colors, all that stuff. And I have to say this, like it goes back to what I was saying in the beginning, taste. V0 has the best taste. V0 and Claude have the best. In V0 uses, I suppose they have trained their own LLMs, and I suppose like they have trained them on really cool stuff because they don't use Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini, which other vibe coding tools, that's what they use. No, own models.
At Flexi, one of the big things that has become super popular for us is making websites. I never planned for that to be part of Flexi, but like, hey, everyone still needs a website and people need like awesome websites. I've gotten the question so many times, which is, aren't you scared that people aren't going to be using you guys anymore? And then someone will show me a website they make in a vibe coding tool and it's just awful. And I'm like, maybe in the future, but like we're not there yet. I love that we are starting to see tools like V0, as you mentioned, where you can actually say, wow, the taste, I see the difference in what the output is from Lovable or from Bolt, but we're obviously still not there. What do you think is going to be the role of a designer? Where can a designer make an impact? What are the different elements on the horizon that you think young designers or seasoned designers should really be looking out for in terms of where their strategic positioning is in the industry?
Number one, you got to be using these tools. I think if I were to hire a designer right now, and I'm pretty sure that companies are doing this, they're looking for people who are proficient on AI, because that translates to someone who is being, well, number one is curious, because it's someone who is just like testing the tools, using them, trying to adapt to whatever the workflows and whatever the tools are out there. So I think that shows to whoever's hiring, this person is has curiosity and has hunger to just like learn stuff. But also, that also tells you like, oh, someone who's using AI, that means they're going to be more productive. They're going to be faster. They're going to be able to create more output, more variations. And that way, now you can be the one not pushing the pixels on a static design tool anymore only. You can actually get in there and work on the fine tuning, the little details of the UI or the front end or the UX, because now you can use these tools to help you like fill those gaps that you had. This is an advice for anyone. I think AI is coming as something that can give you superpowers on the things that maybe you're not as good. And maybe also that you're not as interested in learning. You have a limited amount of time during the day, so you want to focus on the things that will make you happy. I have been able to develop the skills of writing code because it was like choose one, right? I only knew about HTML, CSS, a little bit of JavaScript. Now with AI, now I'm a hacker. You know, those basic things like helped me know how to do more complex stuff. So I think you want to learn the tools, how to allow them to fill in the gaps. And you have to also remove the taboo about using AI, because I think there's still like, you might think that you might want to say in a job interview, or others say like, oh, I did it myself. No, say, no, I used AI to help me on this. It's okay to say that. And that's because that sends that signal that you're curious and that you're potentially going to be better than those who refuse to use AI. But I'm not saying replace your skills with AI. It's more like improve them and fill in the gaps. And then also focus on the things that make you happy. If it's drawing, suddenly now you have more time for drawing. That stuff is going to make you better at communication, creative thinking, that are also going to be something that is going to be expected from you in a workplace, and convincing investors, talking to coworkers, talking to your manager, whatever that is, having the ability to communicate and tell a story and say, and when I say a story, I mean like even if it is just a user flow, you want to tell the story of that, even if it's just a problem. You need to get buy-in from a client, from your manager, from a team. You need to engage them in this story of why solving this problem is important. And you can do that with storytelling. For now, apparently, we still need humans in the Zoom calls, but I'm pretty sure that in a couple of years, it's not going to be a taboo to have your little robot.
So, before we close out our conversation today, I want to ask you if you could design an ideal AI tool for your workflow, snap your fingers or vibe code it up, the tool of tools, the master of masters, what would that look like?
Well, I'm building it already. I can tell you about I'm building a tool that is called Amigo, like friend. And it's you know how politicians use teleprompters, right? TV hosts have, if you notice, they have a little thing that a producer is actually feeding them lines, what to say. Even on SNL, like the actors, if you notice that suddenly they move their eyes because they're reading the dialogue from cue cards. There's a team behind helping them. Why wouldn't us? So I'm working on a little app that helps you during calls, podcasts, whatever it is that is actually proactively helping you on things that you can say on reminding you how to get back to the agenda. For me, it's getting into this call even and into this podcast. I feel anxiety before. And I think it's like feeling prepared is something that you want in a call, and feeling like you can answer those questions that are going to come at you. And usually I try to prepare, and I usually try to have some notes, that I take notes and that I can go back and read them or something.
I love this because, as you saw, I was smiling the whole time. One of the things that's always impressed me about your work is it's very forward thinking. So everyone is vibe coding in AI, and you're thinking about what is like a real problem, next problem that people haven't solved yet for AI and with AI in these specific types of interactions. I'll tell you a
Yeah.
funny story, and this is especially funny because the team member on my team who helps me edit these episodes, along with our little AI friend, is totally going to laugh. Because I remember when I first started interviewing her and we started having our interactions, I kind of felt like she was reading off of a script. And she is a great communicator. She's an amazing team member. And I would always ask myself, wow, she speaks really well, but is she reading from a script? And then I remember one day, we were in the office together and I heard her on a call and I saw she had a little script next to her. And I said to myself, how intelligent. She knows herself. She knows she needs her little script to be able to stay on track, stay on agenda, make sure everyone is aligned. And one of the great things about working with this team member is that every single client that we work with, after we do a postmortem and we talk about project, and I say like, what was the best part about, working with us and what were some of the challenges? Everyone without fail always says, okay,
Ro.
not only was the deliverable amazing, we need to clone Ro. She just makes sure it gets done. Things operate because Ro is a little drill master. And she has her little script. So, Ro, when you're editing this, just know Pablo is working on your problem right now.
Oh, I need
Soon
you
enough.
to be one of the first users of our app when it's out. We've been trying to do it as a web app, and it sucks trying to make it a web app. So it's going to be a native app. But the thing is this: with AI, what you can do is you can do it very contextual. Like what Ro is doing, she's preparing herself with a script, and she's doing it beforehand. But during the call, I mean, we know chaos can happen,
Things come
and
up,
like
people have
anything,
objections.
we'll start talking about something else. Sometimes you need to even just get started. You need some icebreakers and some ideas. So what Amigo is that it's going to look at context of if you already have a conversation with this person, then it can remember previous conversations where it's like, hey, don't forget to talk about their kid named Billy, like, and suddenly you're in the call. It's like, hey, how's Billy? It's like, wow, you remembered, so like, hey, I remember that on the last call this person said that they were going to do XYZ, so maybe you want to mention that, like having context of the project, having context about yourself, but also what is your tone and voice, what are your goals? What is important to you? But also what is being said at the moment. What has been said in the last 10 minutes? Sometimes I have ADD, and so I get distracted. And then I come out, it's like, crap, I just missed like 1 minute and I don't know what they're talking about anymore. So it's just like having a button is like, hey, what did I miss? And then it's like,
Even getting you out of a sticky situation where maybe you're talking to someone about a commercial engagement or a commercial deal, and then someone has like an objection and you're like, wow, I need to think about how I can actually handle that. So to be able to have this Amigo helping you through your calls, giving you context, knowing who you're talking to, and also kind of helping you in real time is
yeah,
such a powerful thing. So Pablo,
yeah.
when can we expect that this is going to come out?
I think I will have a testable thing in 1 or 2 weeks. So
Wow, that's soon.
I'll send it to you so we can ask Ro what she thinks.
Pablo, thank you so much for joining us today. I can't wait for Amigo to come out. Pablo, thank you so much again. We'll see you all soon.